So welcome back guys to We Talk Boxing, and this is my initial post-fight reaction to the Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford fight. Now, this was a phenomenal one-sided beatdown and a tremendous performance for Crawford, who demolished and dismantled his opponent Errol Spence. And it was, as I said, from pretty much round two onwards, a one-sided beatdown. I thought Errol Spence started really well in the fight. He was pressuring Terence Crawford, but for some strange reason, all the pressuring that he was doing just wasn't having that much effect. And Terence Crawford remained poised, he remained concentrated, and he was composed. And in the end, it was he who started to lay the beat down on Errol Spence, and it was the jab for me which was the difference. Now Errol Spence, as I said, he started the fight really well, and he was up and close, towards Terence Crawford. But as I said, from round two onwards, it was that jab. It was that jab which caught Errol Spence off guard, and he was the power in the jab as well, which kind of offset Errol Spence, and he was hurt on multiple occasions, and it was quite weird because every time Terence Crawford was throwing and letting loose with his hands, which wasn't often within the first three rounds, it just looked as if it was having a big effect on Errol Spence, and he got dropped. Spence got dropped in the second round, flash knockdown, nothing too bad, but it unsettled Errol Spence, and from that point onwards, he forced the pace, and rather than relaxing and trying to ease his way back into the fight, he literally put the pressure back on Crawford, and it was easy for Crawford at that point because all he was doing was picking his shots, and he was counter punching and just hitting and moving and not doing too much. But every time he, as I said, let his hands go, he just looked as if Errol Spence just didn't know how to handle it. And a tremendous performance from Crawford, and he dismantles a good, very tough, world-class, elite fighter in Errol Spence. And the difference for me was the composure, the poise. You know what I mean? How controlled Crawford was, and he was patient. As I said, his punches were strong, especially with both hands, because that like it came out southpaw. So you know what I mean. Realistically, he can fight in both stances, and he could hit strong with both hands as well. And as I mentioned earlier, the jab was good, and he was counter punching. His skills are brilliant. It was on point, and it was the accuracy and the timing which was on point for Crawford as well. But it was controlled. Everything he did was controlled. It wasn't rushed, and it was that controlled aggression which was the difference in the earlier part of the fight. And on multiple occasions, as I said, Errol Spence was hurt, down in the second, flash knockdown. I think he was down again. Was it fourth or sixth? Can't remember. Was it sixth? No, seventh. Sorry, he was down twice in the seventh, and then finally stopped in the ninth. But I think it was round four and round six. Errol Spence was hurt as well. He got rocked a couple of times in those rounds, but he didn't go down. And Terence Crawford's defensive and offensive skills are brilliant. They're excellent. And he's a brilliant finisher with what we saw as well. And I underestimated that. Do you know what I mean? I have seen quite a lot of Crawford's fights, but I underestimated how brilliant he is at finishing his opponents. And he didn't let Errol Spence off in this fight. He finished him brilliantly. But he showed a little bit of durability, not much because he didn't really get caught with a lot, but he can take a punch. Errol didn't land much, he didn't throw much, which kind of hurt or unsettled Crawford, but he took Crawford's shots, and he absorbed that pressure because Errol Spence put a lot of pressure on him early. Do you know what I mean? But Crawford just he accepted it. He was composed. Yeah, it was brilliant. One of the best performances I've seen defensively and offensively from a fighter. And from my point of view, with Spence, it was poor decision making, poor defensive skills, and he tried to press the fight very early, which was a mistake in my eyes. And the commentators from TNT kept saying, obviously, that his right hand was really low, and it was. And you would have thought that his corner would have told him that, you know what I mean, just to keep his hands up nice and high, because he was getting caught left, right, and centre. And it was a shame because obviously they didn't address that. And every time, you know what I mean, Errol Spence kept going forward, he kept getting caught. You know what I mean? And as I said, it was that counter punching from Terence Crawford. But it also felt that everything Spence did was rushed. And I feel this was because he was quite embarrassed after the first knockdown, and he kind of wanted to restore some. What's the word I'm looking for? He wanted to restore. I can't really think of the word right now because it's quite early in the morning. But yeah, it just felt rushed for me, and he took a lot of damage. And after the fight, I was listening to a lot of the TNT, BT Sport, whatever you want to call it, commentators. It was Amir Khan, I think it was Denzel Bentley, and Carl Frampton, all fighters, ex-fighters, and have been in world title fights themselves. And they're kind of writing Errol Spence off. Some of them saying that they think he's done. Do you know what I mean? But for me, this is Errol Spence's first loss, and he can still come back from this, because when you look at it, he's lost to now the pound for pound best. Do you know what I mean? That's only one loss on your record. He beats every other welterweight out there today. Every welterweight, even Ennis in my eyes. But Crawford is something different. Crawford is something special. Now, my thoughts with the rematch, I can't see this rematch happening, especially at 147. It's not happening at 147. If these guys fight again, I feel as if it may be in the next maybe 12 to 24 months where we potentially will see these guys go at it again. But potentially, I feel as if it will be at 154. Um, the pre-fight, Errol Spence did look quite drained. I'm not using that as an excuse. I just thought it was poor decision making, and he just didn't really look right in there. And people could put that down to the inactivity, or how drained he looked. But realistically, he just didn't really look right for me. And I feel that if he could just have a bit of time off, not too much time off, but just regroup, potentially work on his defensive skills. This is Errol Spence I'm talking about, and move up. Do you know what I mean? Let his body grow a little bit and fight at 154, and have a couple of, I mean, ease me into 154 type of fights. You know what I mean? Against maybe some of the lesser opponents at 154, and then maybe challenge the bigger names in 154, and maybe capture a world title, because obviously, is it Charlo? Charlo's fighting Alvarez, and may get stripped of a couple of titles. So if Spence, it could go straight into a world title at 154, but I feel I would like him to maybe come back with an easy opponent, and then potentially try and fight for a world title in 154. And you never know, if he does capture a title at 154 and Crawford moves up, then Crawford would definitely capture a title at 154. Then these two guys, maybe in the next 12 or 24 months, will have the rematch, and the fight will be bigger, and it would potentially be better as well. From Crawford's side, brilliant. I've got, you know what I mean, he did everything right on the night, but Spence could certainly improve, and he has to improve if he's going to look to try and beat a Terence Crawford. But for me, I feel this fight will be bigger at 154, and potentially, if both guys are active, then it would be a much better fight, because there's no excuse then in my eyes. But certainly, yeah, it was a one-sided demolition, and Errol Spence got dismantled, literally like an IKEA product. You know what I mean? He just got annihilated, and I weren't expecting it to be a one-sided beatdown. Um, I, I honestly thought it was going to be a little bit close. I thought it was going to be a bit of a chess match, and you know what I mean, both guys catching each other, landing on each other quite easily. But realistically, it wasn't. It was a masterclass performance and a brilliant game plan from Terence Crawford's team. But you guys, let me know your thoughts. Do you know what I mean? How did you see this fight? And again, what do you feel is next for Errol Spence? What do you think is up next for Terence Crawford? Do you think he will stay at 147 and defend the titles, or do you feel that he could too move up to 154 and maybe try and challenge some of the bigger names in boxing and maybe become a free weight undisputed champion? Let me know, guys, your thoughts, and as always, please subscribe. Bless.